Alrighty, welcome back everyone to another Wellbeing Wednesday. This is our June 1. If this is the first time you're joining us, welcome. And if it is not the first time, well, welcome back. So this is the monthly segment that shows child care providers and caregivers like yourselves simple ways that you can support your own well-being, because taking care of ourselves is in fact taking care of others. So whether you're an early childhood educator, a director, a parent, or someone who just feels like a parent some days, I understand that. You're sure to pick up tidbits of actionable advice about how to support your overall well-being and get back to feeling like yourself. I'm your host, Susanna Creed, with Be Well, Care Well, Arkansas, and part of the Curricula Concepts team here. And we are all about supporting the well-being of our child care providers. So since it is June and it is heating up here in Arkansas, we are going to move up our focus on hydration and skincare. Usually we do it in July. This time we're getting ahead of the curve. So before it gets too terribly hot, we're going to talk about this really important topic. And I am super excited to welcome back one of our previous guests. So this is Cassandra Benning. She is the owner of the Floating Lotus Yoga and Day Spa, which is in Little Rock. And her skincare journey started when she was about 12, while caring for her own skincare. And also that continued to flourish into her career. And she's just added so many great things to her repertoire and knows so much about being an esthetician and all these things like that. So I'm really excited that she'll be able to share her knowledge with us today. So welcome, Cassandra. We're so happy that you are here.
Yes, thank you again for everyone out there and Susanna and everyone at your team for having me back. Super honored and privileged to talk about anything with doing with skincare or just well-being in general. So thank you for the re-invite.
Awesome. Well, for those of us who have not seen one of our hydration and skincare well-being Wednesdays, I wanted to get your take on kind of what is the connection between hydration and skincare? Because sometimes it's like, those are two totally separate things. But I know in some of our own conversations, we've kind of discussed how they are connected. So I'd love to just kind of hear your thoughts on that connection as well.
Yeah, so as most people may be aware of, and if not, it's totally okay if you don't know this, but we are made up a lot of water in our body system. And so, yes, drink your water. And so it does tie in directly to the levels of the skin. So there's different layers of the skin. Now, when I went through aesthetic school, there was only like 7. Now they're thinking there's more like 14 different actual layers to the actual skin.
Oh, wow.
And the top few layers are actually the dead skin that needs to be sloughed off, and so the new skin can come up. But that new skin is the important part, because if it's not hydrated properly, like any other cell in our body, it's not hydrated properly, it's going to replicate and damage, cell replicating another damaged cell versus like something that's actually healthy and vibrant and hydrated. It's going to replicate in that way. It's little copy of itself, if you will. And so the hydration does play a role. And what we see in skin is that lacking of that hydration, it does have that direct function of how the skin actually looks dull, lifeless, like there's no glow to that. And so you can always tell by someone's skin how much food of intake that they're doing, because food has water too. So like how much water and consumption, are they having in their daily intake? It does show up on the skin itself. So you can actually tell the difference of someone that has been running on caffeine and any kind of beverages or alcohol, things like that dehydrate. Even tea. Now, if you're drinking your green teas and your white teas, things like that, great. But if it's black tea, that's also dehydrating as well.
Interesting. And it's funny, I've heard of this. I've been in just messing around with makeup, not even skincare, but like makeup, which is a whole other set of stuff that I'm learning how tied skincare is to makeup. There's only so much you can do, but a lot of times you'll hear this idea of this dewy look, right? Oh, I want this dewy look. And it's kind of this young, dewy skin. Well, it just connected as you were talking of, oh, duh. Dewy means moist, like it means it's got that moisture, that nice morning dew, that glow, like you said. And so it's interesting when you can tell, because I was thinking, oh, maybe it's not as plump or as like young looking, but when you talk about it being dull, and also not having some of that glow piece. I'm like, oh, that's really interesting. And I just never connected that before. Oh, that's so it's interesting. You're probably like able to read someone's skin in some ways just by looking at them and kind of.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I've seen so much different things and different types of skin throughout my career. And one of the things that do is like that plumpness factor does play a role, but that also has to do with the collagen that's being produced in the skin. And as we get older, we definitely need to be more proactive in our hydration and what we're taking in on a regular basis as far as food and just also stress. That does play that role for like when you have more of a skin that doesn't have that bounce back, and that just happens with age. And so that's where, you need to watch your protein intake, which I know doesn't necessarily have to do with water concept we're talking about today, but does have to actually do with the structure of what holds the skin in place and gives that little bounce. And hydration is definitely something that plays a role, because I can tell my own personal journey, if I'm not drinking enough water, especially for the age I'm in now, like I will see that crepiness. And if I drink the water I try to get in a day, it's not having that same kind of impact with the skin.
Okay. So if somebody's maybe, starting to increase their water, but they're also trying to maybe dip their toe in the water with skincare of like, by adding in the hydration, what other kind of introductory things could somebody do with regard to their skincare? If they're like, I have no idea what this is, I've never done anything with it.
Right.
There's all the aisles at CVS and at Ulta and all these places. So where would you suggest maybe people start? What are some intro pieces?
Well, intro piece also is like meeting yourself where you're at. And so something, like drinking water, of course, but water actually, just come back to water actually plays a role in actually helping, like our hair is all over our body, even our face. And so the hair actually has, fetting into oil and water that comes up from the surface, and moves up and out of the hair follicle. And typically that's the oil that does that. But there's the water that helps push that along. And so dehydration can cause your skin to not move oil efficiently out of the skin. And so an oil is really good for someone that's getting started. So if they're really dehydrated and they're not getting their water, they can meet themselves from the outside moving in versus the inside moving out. And oil can be something topical you put on. Also something you can take as well, like, your EAs, which are your essential fatty acids. So yeah,
is that like the fish oil, omega-3s?
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be fish oil, because some people have a little bit of acid reflux or things like that from taking a fish oil. It's actually the algae that the fish eat, and then the little fish eat the algae, and then the bigger fish eats the big fish, and then it keeps multiplying. And so that actually most fish products from a larger fish, where it's actually the algae that's producing the component of what you're looking for your omegas. Coming back to the point about this, going to the store is like, finding some healthy oil that you can press into the skin. Usually with oils, you're not wanting to rub them on the skin, you want to do a press, and that will help loosen up any congested oil that is in the actual top layer of the skin. Will it correct dehydration? Topically, yes, but it still needs to be met from the inside coming out.
That's so interesting. I feel like that's one of those, kind of paradoxes and contradictory things of like two negatives make a positive, where it's like two oils will actually properly remove those oils in a sense, not remove, but kind of having them come up and out and being just transferred as they're naturally supposed to, of an oil with an oil. And I know a lot of times now I'm going to ask a question because I'm sure I'm not the only one who has wondered this, and I'm sure that somebody else is probably wondering this. When it comes to oils, I'm guessing you're not meaning like go into my pantry and get olive oil or coconut oil. Can you maybe, because again, everything is like this serum, vitamin C oil, or, argan oil or coconut oil. Like, where can somebody start if they're looking at an oil to, again, topically hydrate while also increasing their water intake to internally hydrate? Where do they start with the oils?
Yeah, well, like for instance, if you're looking like, and there's nothing wrong if you really want to go like homeschool, do it yourself, you know, a really good cold pressed olive oil. I mean, I would put that probably on my body. I wouldn't necessarily put it on my face. But that is a good starting point. Same with coconut oil, grapeseed oil is really good. Wheat germ oil. Those are things that we can actually ingest. But here's the thing I'm coming around to. Any kind of skincare that you start with, really know what's in it and how it's manufactured and how it's produced. And so whatever your skin is being applied, whatever you're applying to your skin will end up into your system. So if you're not comfortable eating it, you probably don't need to be putting it on your body. And so I lean in towards what we have here, which is we carry two skincare lines, Eminence Organics and DMK. And so to me, I know they're vetted as far as, you know, knowing that I trust what I'm putting on my face, but just be, you know, vigilant about reading, you know, what's in it and how it's manufactured. That's the best starting point I can give to anyone. So whether you're going to go what we consider in the aesthetics industry, the 5 and dime store, which is your Walmarts, and, you know, and the lower tier, there's nothing wrong with that. There's some great skincare companies out there that, you know, can meet you there. Then, you know, you alt into the more the departments, you know, a little bit level of like Dillard's and, you know, Macy's, things like that. And then you have your actual, what you have inside of a spa, which is where we are, where it comes with like a skincare coach. And so you're actually someone to actually not necessarily hand hold you, but definitely tell you this is exactly what you need, you know, as opposed to going on a TikTok journey and being like, I'm going to try this new thing. And it might not be exactly anything close to what you need. So.
Oh man, yes. And I love how you talk about the different scaffolding approaches so that it is approachable no matter where someone's coming in. And I love, kind of just to reiterate for, you know, myself and for anybody viewing, if you are just joining us or if you missed it earlier, you know, this idea of would I ingest it? Like, would I eat it in some ways? Would I feel comfortable eating it? Or would I have some issues, some questions about it, especially in regards to the starting point of oils? You know, do I feel comfortable ingesting it? Because it will get into our system at some point. And then watching for what's in it and reading labels and knowing how it's made. And so going on that second point, I'd love for you to maybe give just a couple of things that, you know, if I'm reading a label, like, okay, I'm trying to read the label and I want to know that I'm getting something that falls into some of the categories that you mentioned. What should I look for to either avoid? Like, what are some kind of starter things to avoid? And what are some things that are good to maybe look for when reading those labels, particularly for those oils that you're talking about?
Yeah, with oil, there's usually not a lot of things that you can find that are not representative of a true, you know, what they're actually in there. Like, they don't put a lot of extra. Some companies will. Synthetic fragrances is another one thing, because that can be inflammatory for a lot of people. When you have a lot of redness in your skin, there
Yes.
there can be that part of dehydration that plays a role in that, but also it has to do with like there's something that we're putting on there or interacting with every day that's causing that inflammation. And so synthetic fragrances is one. Even in oil, you might find some parabens for longevity of shelf life, which, you know, that can cause irritation to your skin. You won't necessarily see something like sodium or sulfate, which is in more of the cleansing kind of things, but that's another one just to kind of be aware of. That's not necessarily good to have.
Oh yeah, because I have seen like the whole sulfates and parabens thing coming out, where more companies are trying to move away from that. And sorry, I know I interrupted. I want to come back later and ask you about that but continue.
No, so those are just 3 right off the top of my head that you know, want to kind of be aware of. But other than that, usually depending on an oil, for say, if we're just going with that direction, then it's something that I would say in all those tiers of skincare that we listed off of the different places you can buy it, typically would not have like some really harsh, just we're just talking about an oil, because there's it,
Yeah.
it in itself is, other than the fragrances, I could see and a paraben or something to keep it in its shelf life longer. Yeah.
I love that. And I love that I don't think we've actually gotten into, like really oil in any of our Wellbeing Wednesday topics about this. So I love that we're doing this because, again, like you said, it's kind of, there's not a ton of extra, like if we're talking about cleansers or exfoliators, that's a whole other level. But if somebody's just trying to start and they're on this journey, it's like, where do you go? An oil is pretty safe because it's a little bit more clean in a sense, because it's an oil. Like an oil is an oil is an oil. It's probably going to be more safe. You'd probably feel, coconut oil or something like that. You would put it on your skin and in your body. Also, if you use something like that, who knows, maybe you can do a double whammy of using some coconut oil to cook with and then putting it on your face. But also I like the 3 things to look for of the synthetic fragrances. I think especially if they say that kind of ambiguous term of either proprietary blend or fragrance, and it's just that there's no description of what that is, sulfates and parabens, like looking for those when it comes to labels. And I think that that's a really great entry point for a lot of people. Like I personally started using argan oil because it's just one, it's a smaller tube. I don't need it for all over my body. I just use it on my face. It's not inflammatory for me, and it's pretty pure as is. And you don't need a lot with an oil. It goes pretty far. So I really like that we're kind of touching on this idea. And also, real quick, for anybody who's watching, if you have skincare or hydration questions or topics that you want us to discuss, we do still have like a couple minutes. So please feel free to put those in the comments. I'm watching those, and we'd be more than happy to talk about them as well. Otherwise, Cassandra and I will just keep chatting because that's just super easy to do. But you did mention sulfates and parabens. And personally, at least I have noticed, a lot of those companies have been trying to move away from sulfates and parabens, and that's a big thing in some of their advertisements. Can you maybe talk a little bit more about why are we trying to move away from them? What are they?
Yeah, absolutely. I went on a raw food journey a few years ago. I'm not a raw foodist, but anyways now, but I did do that for a year. And I was reading the research that was coming out of the UK. Now, UK and Europe has, they have what we have at FDA approved here, which is like organic. They have the Demeter tested, which is even a level beyond our standards of what's called organic. And so I was reading all these studies coming out of the UK that parabens were directly linked to breast cancer. And so I was just like, it just made me aware, like, I'm in skincare. And this was really early on in my journey back in 2006. And so I was really concerned about, with it kind of like had this perfect storm where, as being a raw foodist, I was really hyper aware of what I was putting in my body. And so reading about these studies about parabens, I was like, yeah, I don't know if I want to, be involved with that kind of thing. And then also knowing with like sodium lauryl sulfate and other things that, they're actually in degreasers, like what you would strip a floor with, your kitchen floor with. And so that it causes a lot of inflammation in the skin. And this is really, I'm going to give you a little visual here. Your skin on your face should look like the skin on the back.
Cassandra's told me this, y'all, and let me tell you, they do not match on me.
Yeah. Or your buttocks, the places that don't receive a lot of environmental factors or sunlight. And I'm a sun lover. That's just my upbringing. I love the sun. I'm very smart with the sun that I take in, but I do love going to the lake every weekend I can. But I do love sunscreen. I wear big hat and glasses, and coming back to that point, so the places in your body that are not getting a lot of sunlight, or a lot of environmental factors like computer screens and phone screens, and just walking out to your car, being out in the day, activities, fluorescent lighting, all these take a toll because we're in it, it's coming in. And so with that, we typically will see in skincare that the face and the décolleté are either maybe red or inflamed, and there's these, coming back to the sodium sulfate, there are already attacks on the skin in this area, the décolleté, what we call the skin that we really we treat the whole skin, the whole body.
Yeah, it's kind of like this area, right?
Neck and face. are typically not the same for most people for the rest of the skin on their body. And so that is because of all the environmental factors, but also the products that we've been using for years that, I mean, we've been, using to decrease a fluor, like, that same kind of chemical compound to cleanse with on our face. And so that's one of the components of why I find that the sulfates, and the parabens, the links to cancer, that also, why would I want to put something that I degrease of fluor with on my face, And so there's the oversensitivity. We see a lot of people like, I'm sensitive. It's not that they're sensitive. It's that they've been using stuff on their face that is causing that sensitivity and that inflammation and that redness. And so we try to really educate people. And one of the bigger educations I have, and this comes back to the oil and away from the kind of stuff that we're talking about, is that growing up, I wanted that degreased feel. I was a sea breeze girl. I mean, straight off, because I was naturally oily. And what's actually interesting is re-educating people that you might need something that feels a little crisp and clean, but you definitely have to put your moisture back on. And you also can cleanse with oil. So it's actually oil mixed with oil. So when you're actually talking about loosening up oil and debris on the face, it's actually one of the things we really talk about is the double cleanse, where we take I do a stonecrop oil and I work my circles and I wipe that off. And then I do another cleanse with something that's a little bit more getting rid of that oil. And so I have that like nicer clean feel. And then I put my moisturizer on top of that, or serums and moisturizers. So yeah, so there's all sorts of ways to pick your routine that suits you. And so one of the main things is like someone that has oily skin is like, I don't want to put oil on my skin. I was one of those people, but I did notice the difference that it made with how it loosened up the oil I already have that I overproduce. My, sebum produces really, really a lot. Not so much now that I'm older, but definitely back in the day.
That's awesome. And
So
we do actually have.
Yeah, go ahead.
So we actually do have two questions.
Okay.
One is, I try to avoid mineral oil and petroleum. Is that a good idea?
Yes. That is really that's a really great question. I really appreciate whoever brought that up. When we talk about
Sarah Norwood, one of our coworkers.
Right, because those are really triggering to sensitivity, inflammation, and they're very blocking of the actual functions of the skin. It's almost like, Vaseline, everyone knows about that. You spread that on. Do you think that's not going to allow your skin to breathe and move and function the way it should be? And same with mineral, it can cause a lot of breakouts, inflammation in the skin, and it doesn't allow the skin to function at its optimal level.
So tell me, what's the difference between a mineral oil and the oils we've been talking about?
Well, when we're talking with the things that are derived from a natural process, mineral oils are really manufactured. So that's another component of that. That's more, and not to say that your others aren't processed, they are, but it is highly processed into a way that is not beneficial for, your body and what kind of oil actually needs. Like, rosehip oil or coconut oil, like we've mentioned before, argan oil, those are, safer for you to be using on your body for sure.
Gotcha. So maybe a fourth thing, kind of, if you're watching this and you want to explore the oil realm, again, would I feel comfortable ingesting it? Like if you're worried about how, am I going to get poisoned by this? That's probably not a good thing for the skin. Sulfates and parabens to avoid, but also it sounds like if you see like mineral oil on there, that might be also a fourth thing to be like, okay, maybe let me look at a different one. So I really appreciate that because I didn't know there was a difference. So,
and I will say there's castor oil out there that is really, really good for healing. Now, would I put that on my face? No, but like if you have any kind of cyst or something, if you take a warm compress with castor oil and you set it on the skin, it will help eliminate. It's really a really good healing oil, but again, it's really super thick, and I wouldn't advise anyone to put that on their face as an oil. You want something light and very fluid, not something super, super heavy.
Yeah, not something that's like, well, I guess because coconut oil is solid at room temperature, but
Right.
probably the one that you would put on your face might not be as solid.
Well, with coconut oil, as soon as you touch it, the heat from your body will
Melt
emulsify,
it.
melt it in.
Okay. Okay. Learning something new. And then our second question is, I want to find a good all over body moisturizer that has SPF without feeling greasy all day for everyday use. So do you have any recommendations for what that could look like, or what are options for that?
So a moisturizer that has SPF that you can use all over the body.
Like kind
Raw
of an everyday look.
yeah. There's so many different ways to go with that. So like you could
I
go with,
know.
you could go with a mineral, which would be mineral versus a physical skin sunscreen. We have a great blog on our website, I think from last year that we did that. What are the difference? Your physicals are going to be, of course, your more chemical based ones that you can apply topically or spray on. Mineral is where the actual light in the actual mineral of the sunscreen reflects. Now, those are your ones that have that really heavy white coating. So you have to really work that into the skin. But yeah, an all over body one. I mean, Eminence I know has some really good ones, but I think I've seen, let's see, I just blanked on name. sorry.
No, it's okay.
I really honestly, I would say that stick with something that I would stick with more of a mineral one. And I'm sure, and whoever asked that question, we can get something a little bit more later to you personally, for an all over body one. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And also for anybody watching, in the comments, we do have the Floating Lotus website linked, and you can get to the blog post there as well. And yeah, so it's interesting.
Oh, I was just saying, I do know with sunscreen, like we started carrying something called Little Koi, which is it's not harmful for the in some places like Hawaii, Australia will not allow you to come in to their waters because of the coral reefs. So they're making sunscreen where they have a safer coral reef protection. So moving away from some things that are in sunscreens for that. So that's another thing to kind of, if you're into that kind of, saving the planet, you can definitely
I love it.
Yeah, better.
Yeah, hey, two for one, right? You're taking care of your skin and your physical body while also getting your sunshine, but also supporting the larger earthly environment as a whole. And I do think that's an interesting thing to note of, like, with the oils, we were saying, stay away from mineral oil, but also mineral sunscreen might be actually a good kind of word to look for when it comes to sunscreen. And maybe if you're looking for something with an SPF, like, is it a mineral kind of SPF base? So I love that, it's about learning and being educated. And so what words to look for and where mineral is good and where mineral might block the skin's natural process. So I love that we made that distinction, especially as we're going into summer and looking at our SPFs. I know I'm going to look at every single one that I have now and be like, is this mineral based or not? Because me being very pale, I have to have very strong. So I'm usually the super zinked out ones of, like, I want to look like I'm a lifeguard, like with the nose thing, but just like all over my face. And that's just going to maybe keep me from getting sunburned. But I'm curious now. I think those are mineral based, but I'm not sure. So I'm going to check.
Usually your zinc oxide and titanium dioxide usually are more mineral based products. So it should say like mineral on there for a lot of them. Say that, and you'll know, because as soon as you put on, it is like that lifeguard thing you said. It's like really thick and white.
You got to really work it in, get some muscle, elbow grease in for sure. But at the same time, it's more natural and it's going to protect in a different way. And I know that it's more mineral based, so if my skin absorbs it, it's going to be a little bit safer and easier on my system, which is a good thing as well. So I cannot believe it, but we are already at time.
Oh my!
I know it always happens like that, where it's super fast. So again, if anybody watching wants to connect with Cassandra, read up on the blog, or visit her Floating Lotus Day Spa in Little Rock. She's wearing one of the t-shirts now. They're really great. But check that out in the comments as well. And if you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out to me directly or to comment on the video. You can always watch the replay. And if you haven't already, please like and subscribe on our Curricula Concepts YouTube, on Curricula Concepts Facebook, and on our Instagram as well. So you make sure that you get the notifications when we're going live and doing these Wellbeing Wednesday segments. So that is all that we have for you today. Again, Cassandra, thank you so much for joining us. It's always a pleasure. And for everyone watching, we hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Thank you again. Bye.